Okay, so good afternoon, colleagues. A warm welcome to the Chinese University of Hong Kong Partnership Showcase today by the secret of successful international collaboration. I'd first like to start by apologising that unfortunately Professor Kathy Beloff is sick today. I have the pleasure of giving the welcome this afternoon. But before we start, can I just make sure or kindly ask everyone to put themselves on mute unless you're presenting, and then of course we would encourage you to use the function for the Q&A session. So I would first like to start by acknowledging and paying respects to the traditional custodians of the land we meet, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. It is upon their lands that the University of Sydney is built. I'm actually working from home today, so I'm calling in from Camaragal land. As we share our own knowledge, teaching, learning and research practices within this university, may also pay respects to the knowledge embedded forever within the Aboriginal custodianship of country. So it's always said that in times of adversity, you find out who your real friends are. And that's certainly been the case during the COVID pandemic, which has imposed such enormous strain on our international engagement activities. But today's webinar shows the strength and resilience of the relationship between the University of Sydney and the Chinese University of Hong Kong. So we actually have a long history of engagement with CUHK. We signed a partnership collaboration agreement in 2018. Sorry, actually it was prior to that. But since 2018, we've actually, both institutions have invested almost 100,000 to support joint research projects in academic exchange, research in arts, engineering, science and medicine and health. So the partnership has certainly got off to a great start, and we really hope that today's event will be the first in a series of workshops that will run over the course of the next 12 months. And we're keen to really focus on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals to target our early and mid-career researchers. So today is also a good time to take stock, to look at the secrets of what makes a successful collaboration and how to generate impactful research. So I think there are sort of two fundamental requirements. Of course, the first is to have an alignment of academic interests, a strata of established research collaboration you can build on. And the secondly, possibly even more important, is the requirement to have people that get on with each other. You need to like with who you're going to research and who you enjoy working with. And that spark exists between successful academic teams who we're showcasing today in diabetes research, integrated medicine and information engineering. And that spark also exists between the professional staff at both universities who work really hard to maintain the partnership and provide opportunities for our researchers to engage. So I'm thinking now of my colleague Xiao Hui in the Office of Global Engagement, Shelley Fan, Amy and Yvonne from the Office of Academic Links at CUHK. It's been a real pleasure to work with you on getting this showcase off the ground, and in particular, a special thank you to Yvonne and Xiao Hui. I know a lot of work has gone into this event. And it's also wonderful that we have a number of colleagues from our partner universities around the world who have joined the webinar. Your presence is most welcome, and we do hope that you find something of benefit from this session. But now I'm going to hand over to Professor Mai Ha in Hong Kong, the Pro Vice Chancellor of Research and Professor of Biomedical Sciences, who's chairing the event today. So thank you, Professor Sham, over to you.
Thank you very much, Amanda. Thank you very much for your opening and for stepping in on behalf of Kathy. It is really, I'm very sorry that she cannot make this morning. I really enjoy working with her and with the University of Sydney. So good morning, colleagues and students, if you are participating from CUHK, and good afternoon if you are participating from Sydney, or you know, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are. It is really my great pleasure to welcome you all to this showcase webinar focusing on international collaboration. Especially if you are early career researcher, I hope that this will give you the opportunity of making use of the international network so that you will be able to reach out to collaborators and also get inspiration into setting up research focus. The CUHK has just launched a new university strategic plan, and in our plan, we have various directions of foci but building research talent and enhancing global engagement are two very, very important aspects. Needless to say, talent is key to research and innovation. The quality of talents not only impact on our research, but obviously it also impact on our local economy as well as the society, on a much broader sense. The CUHK has decided to invest quite a little bit more on nurturing the next generation of researchers and innovators. For example, the Vice Chancellor's Strategic Recruitment Program is actively pursuing to recruit top young talents globally. And we have a strategy of cluster hiring in key research areas to promote interdisciplinary research. In Hong Kong, we have the PhD fellowship scheme and the postdoctoral fellowship scheme. And in fact, in CUHK, since I joined the university, we are also launching an internal postdoctoral fellowship scheme. In the next few years, we have a total of 100 new postdoctoral positions available. All of this is really to drive early career development as well as really complementing our talent training. Now, for a very long time, we have been working very hard to promote international links. But because of COVID-19, I think that all of our mode of collaboration has changed. So a lot of activities are now online. Specifically, I think the early career researchers are probably affected most because online connection can achieve certain goal, but there are also limitations. So therefore, using various platforms that the university can provide, we would really like to provide opportunities for our young researchers, early career researchers, as well as our other team members to really make use of opportunities to link up, explore new perspectives, cultivate new ties, develop collaborations, even without the possibility of travel. So in the past year, we have really organized numerous virtual events, and many of these has been very successful and actually brought in a successful outcome, such as grant application or really establishing joint labs and joint teams and co-supervision of students and so on and so forth. International collaboration obviously is a very important part in our collective effort in addressing complex global challenges and so on. Say in the webinar today, we are delighted to have 7 speakers of several teams who have initiated some of the fruitful collaborations between CUHK and Sydney, and they will be sharing their experiences in building and sustaining their collaborations with us this morning. So these colleagues include Professor Ronald Ma from the Division of Endocrinology and Diabetes at CUHK, Professor Tony Keach and Professor Alicia Jenkins from NHMRC Clinical Trial Center at Sydney. And they have been working together in diabetes research since 2013. Professor Alessandra Lau of the Hong Kong Institute of Integrative Medicine at CUHK, together with Dr. Joshua Poon of the School of Computer Science at Sydney, who jointly established the Analytic and Clinical Cooperative Laboratory for Integrative Medicine in 2016. We have Professor He Chen of the Department of Information Engineering at CUHK, who has maintained close collaborations in wireless communication with his mentor at Sydney since his PhD and postdoc time. And also Professor Wang Li of the School of Electrical and Information Engineering at Sydney, who has been working in tandem with his mentor and colleagues at CUHK on our side on deep learning and computer vision since his PhD and postdoc training. So I hope all of you will enjoy the program today. And I now would pass the time back to my colleague and begin the sharing session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Sham. My name is Shirley Fan. I'm the Director of Academic Links at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. We will be now moving to our 4 presentations that Professor Sham had just talked about. During this time, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box below, and our presenters will attempt to answer them during the Q&A session, or alternatively, you may wish to raise them directly during that time. To start, may I invite Professor Alicia Jenkins Professor Anthony Kish and Professor Ronald Ma to start with their first presentation on their diabetes research. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. My name is Ronald Ma from the Chinese University of Hong Kong, and I'm delighted to give this presentation on behalf of our project team, together with Professor Tony Kish and Professor Alicia Jenkins from the University of Sydney. First of all, we would like to express our sincere gratitude to the Chinese University of Hong Kong and the University of Sydney for the great support we've received, without which this collaboration would never have existed. So in the next 7 minutes or so, I would like to briefly talk about what our collaboration is, how it started, and also some of the lessons we learned along the way. So our collaboration in diabetes is led by Professor Tony Kish and Professor Alicia Jenkins from the NHMRC Clinical Trial Unit, University of Sydney, as well as myself, with interests in areas ranging from diabetes, biomarkers, and clinical trials. Our collaboration started back in April 2013, when then the Dean of Medicine from University of Sydney, Professor Bruce Robinson, brought a delegation from University of Sydney to visit Hong Kong. I had the opportunity to meet with Professor Tony Kish in what was analogous to a speed dating session, and very quickly we realized that we have lots of research interests in common, and there will be real synergy if we collaborated. This meeting was followed by an application to the CUHK Short-Term Faculty Exchange Program, and with support from both universities, I embarked on a visit of 1 week visit to Sydney to visit Tony and Alicia, and also met with many of their colleagues. We had wide-ranging discussions on topics from biomarkers for diabetes complication, biobanking, beta cell biology, and other potential research. I remember leaving Sydney with a long list of more than 20 projects that we could potentially be working on. That meeting was followed by regular gatherings at major international diabetes conferences at least twice a year, as well as bilateral visits. So for example, Tony and Alicia visited us in September 2014, and we also co-hosted a workshop on translational research in diabetes as part of the Asian Pacific Society of Atherosclerosis and Vascular Disease Congress. We had visits both sides, and then in 2016, we secured our first joint grant. As the collaboration grew, other members of the team also were involved in the bilateral exchange, as well as knowledge transfer, as shown here, with support from both the University of Sydney and the Chinese University of Hong Kong, and we also had honorary appointments. Our keen interest to collaborate was based on the fact that we have both established cohorts in Sydney and in Hong Kong for follow-up of diabetes patients with investigation of biomarkers for predicting diabetes complication, the field cohort in Sydney and the Hong Kong Diabetes Register in Hong Kong. So the field trial is the phenofibrate intervention and event lowering in diabetes study is a landmark trial initiated and led by Tony in the University of Sydney, where they were investigating the protective effects, potentially protective effects of phenofibrate on cardiovascular risk. A surprising finding from the study was that in addition to protecting against cardiovascular event, the drug phenofibrate also protected the kidneys in people with diabetes and also has significant beneficial effects on the eye, reducing diabetic retinopathy by more than 30%. This important finding was published in important papers such as in important publications in The Lancet, as well as change in international guidelines for diabetes and lipid management. And with a detailed database and biomarkers, they've also embarked on biomarker discovery program. An important question that arose from this research is, given the protective effect of phenofibrate against eye damage in people with type 2 diabetes, whether individuals with type 1 diabetes would derive similar benefit. This was the basis of the FAME-1i clinical trial that Alicia and Tony have subsequently initiated with support from the NHMRC, and they are leading this multi-center clinical trial in Australia and New Zealand, and we are fortunate to be one of the overseas centers contributing and recruiting patients into the trial in this important program. In addition to our research in diabetes complication, an area that we then became interested to work together was in the area of insulin pump, where our colleagues in Australia have a lot of experience. So relative to multiple traditional way of giving multiple daily insulin injection, use of insulin pump is associated with better glucose control, lower risk of hypoglycemia, and importantly, better quality of life for our patients. So our clinical fellow, Dr. Tiffany Yao, then undertook an attachment to work closely with Alicia to learn about practical aspects of initiating pump therapy in our patients in Hong Kong. And later on, Elaine Chow from the UK also joined our team and has been working with Alicia on implementing and investigating possibility to do pump and CGM trials together. In addition to our collaboration in research, this later also expanded to medical education. Led by my colleague, Professor Alice Kong, with support from our Dean, Professor Francis Chan, Alice and Alicia have been working together to establishing a global elective medical students program, the GEMS program, to provide clinical training and clinical research for medical students. So Sabrina and Stephanie shown here are the first two GEMS scholars who had the great opportunity to visit Sydney and work with Alicia on clinical research. So fruits of the collaboration so far include 10 papers, more than 5 in revision or submission, and several additional ones in preparation. We've managed to secure 4 joint grants, with 1 clinical trial that is ongoing, the FAME-1i trial that I've just mentioned. We've also been able to initiate multiple knowledge transfer activities, including 3 joint workshops and conferences, and many exchange visits amongst our team members. We've also recently began to work together on some of our advocacy work. So this timeline highlights the time it takes to sometimes realize some of these fruits. For example, our first grant was 3 years into the collaboration, and we didn't have our first publication until 6 years into the collaboration. Then we also initiated a site, our site as one of the trial centers for the multi-center trial, but the papers now are coming out one by one. You can also see that whilst our initial collaboration focused on biomarkers for diabetes complication, with time we were able to gradually build on other topics to build a collaborative program that has both breadth and depth. I want to highlight that this sort of international collaboration offers great opportunities for our younger colleagues. For example, Fei Chang, my PhD student, had the great opportunity to visit Sydney and spend 3 months working with Professor Anand Hadaka on a telomere assay, and subsequently apply it to our archive samples in Hong Kong, which led to her papers for a PhD thesis awards, and also has now returned to China to a faculty position. Likewise, Wilson, PhD student from University of Sydney, also spent some time with us working on bioinformatics analysis for his microRNA work, and has subsequently gone on to start his postdoctoral fellowship with an award from the Australian Diabetes Society. Our clinical colleagues, Tiffany and Elaine, has also been involved in the collaboration and has subsequently gone on to investigate the use of pump in clinical service as well as in research. Whilst our collaboration has been productive and involved a lot of hard work, we have been able to spend a little bit of time outside of the lab, as shown here in the different visits. And the most recent one, a gathering at the World Diabetes Congress in Korea, where Alicia was our guest of honor at our team gathering. So in summary, to build successful collaborations require a lot of support, commitment, and communication. Frequent and maintaining contact is key. It is also important to explore different areas because sometimes the focus of collaboration may shift. It is important to involve team members, and because these offer great opportunities, especially for our early career team members. And indeed, it is immensely rewarding in establishing these long-term friendships and partnerships. And with that, I thank you for your kind attention, and we will be happy to take questions later on in the session. Thank you.
Thank you. May I now invite Dr. Josiah Poon and Professor Alexander Lau to talk about their work on the Analytic and Clinical Cooperation, a cooperative laboratory for integrative medicine.
Sure. Thank you very much. I'm Alex Lau. I'm from the Chinese University of Hong Kong, and Josiah and myself will be presenting in this section. But I would also like to introduce Professor Simon Poon, who is also from the University of Sydney, who is a key collaborator in our project. But he's able to join the meeting today with apologies. So I'm going to spend the first part talking about how we established this joint laboratory together with the Sydney team. And then Josiah will talk about some of the activities that we've been doing over the past few years. I think the key message is we try to use or develop right on 2 strengths of the universities. One is the new development of integrative medicine at the CUHK, and also the data analytics and IT team at the University of Sydney. Next slide, please. Okay, so one of the first projects that we've done was on stroke because of my background as a clinician and in neurology. So there was back in 2013 when the Hospital Authority of Hong Kong commissioned a project for us to do a data mining project on using the electronic health records in the hospital systems. So we look at stroke patients in our hospitals, and we actually find out that for those patients who actually visited Chinese medicine clinics or had TCM consultations prior to their stroke, they actually have better outcomes. And for those patients who had Chinese medicine treatment after they have a stroke, they also have a better outcome in terms of reduced mortality and improve the functional outcomes. So that leads to our further collaboration and find out that we could collaborate in terms of having integrated medicine and data analytics. So that was very fortunate that our universities both agreed and supported our collaboration. And in fact, we had one of the seed funding money of about Hong Kong dollars of $500,000 on both sides of the universities to help us start the collaboration. So with that pilot projects and some of the ongoing projects that we designed at that time, we coined and designed a new joint big data lab, and I think it was Josiah who actually gave us the name, which is an Analytical and Clinical Cooperative Laboratory for Integrative Medicine, just to highlight the fact that we are working together and also we focus on integrative medicine. So the acclaimed lab was established. So the first activity that we had was a joint symposium. We debated a little bit on whether we should have the meeting at the Sydney or whether in Hong Kong. So we settled in to have the meeting at the campus of the Chinese University in 2016. And at that time, we invited our collaborators from across the globe, including United Kingdom, including Beijing, and also Shanghai to our meeting. So there was again, our guest of honor was Helen. She was a philanthropist from the university, from the Sydney side, and we were very happy that she was able to join us. And she was also a key contributor to our ongoing collaboration as well. So that was the start. We had about 200 attendees in this joint symposium that laid foundations for our current projects. So eventually, our university supported the establishment of the joint laboratory, and we visited Sydney and took the opportunity of a visit by our Vice Chancellor at that time, Professor Song, Joseph Song, and he was there on another meeting, and we took the opportunity to have the MOU signing ceremony together with Dr. Michael Spence at that time. The time was April 2017. And as you can see at the back, Josiah and myself and other deaneries were present at the signing ceremony. So, and then quickly following the MOU signing ceremony, we have another celebration or announcement of our collaboration at the local actually, it was in the Chinatown restaurant, and we invited local supporters as well as the media to attend the ceremony. And that was the time we also asked for further donations to our laboratory to support our research activities. I think I'll then pass the time to Josiah, who will talk about the missions and some of the activities that we've had over the past few years.
Okay. Thank you, Alex. So I'm Josiah and one of the co-directors of the lab. So when we set up the Acclaim lab, there's two missions that we want to achieve. The first one, that we want to set it up as a platform for scientists, not necessarily just for CUHK or USYD, but it is a platform for, as I said, in the second point, that we also encourage collaborators from other parts of the world. That's why in our the symposium, we are inviting a lot of our friends to come along, and partly that we can share what we have learned, and also partly that they can share what they are working on, and hopefully that we can start working together. And the laboratory is to enable the integration of the best of the IT or the computing techniques in combinations of the clinical research that CUHK is doing. So essentially that's the user is contributing from the data analytics side, and then the CUHK is coming from more the clinical area. As a result, so that means that we looking forward to people who are from a diverse discipline. So we call it integrated medicine, and our aim is just for the better healthcare for patients, and more it's an evidence base. So by doing that, so partly that we can use the clinical expertise that from the CUHK, but also we are using the more IT techniques. So it's like you have the medical more the foundation biomedical research. You have the clinical side of the research now, and also we can have the IT side as well. We have different types of collaborators that might involve, and so it's not just clinicians, but we're also like encouraging nurses, allied health, others of medical professions. Our aim is trying to, it's an integrated medicine, and that initially we're also sort of looking at the how we can integrate also the Western medicine and the Chinese medicines. One of the strengths in this School of Computer Science is why we are more in the sort of natural language processing and the text mining. So we are hoping that at the end that we can use having all the literatures that have been like, especially in the Chinese medical science, a lot of documentation, so we can make the best use or extract knowledge from them and help us to move forward in this field. And very importantly, of course, then we try to sort of do a lot of research networking with friends from Manchester, from China Academy of Chinese Medical Sciences, from Yale Hospital and Longhua Hospital initially, that we have a lot of meetings. We visit one another. We also sort of present our work in various conferences and so on. And the aim is just try to get everyone on board. And so here we visit, some of them haven't really sort of formally sort of like integrated, but we are visiting them like the Shandong Chinese Medical Hospital and so on. And at the same time, we have student visit. We have over the years, we also like serving as a platform. Serving as a platform, so we also sort of like providing services to Professor Fan Chen, I mean, to the groups, and to having text mining on some of their clinical records. So, so the lab itself is set up to be an enabler for a lot of researchers from different fields working interesting in the integrated medicines and computer science to work together. So I think I will stop here then. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I now invite Professor He Chen from the Chinese University of Hong Kong, who has maintained close ties with his colleagues at the University of Sydney to develop his work in wireless communication.
Can you see my slides? Can everybody see my slides?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Good. Thanks. First of all, thanks for the organizing team for inviting me here to introduce my collaboration with my mentor in Sydney. So I'm from Department of Information Engineering in Chinese University of Hong Kong, but I was trained in Sydney, so I got my PhD there. So our collaboration is about wireless communication. So it's not the previous talks mainly about medical. So it's more about the engineering part. So it's with Professor Branca Velucitic's team, with I think it's School of Electrical and Information Engineering in Sydney Uni, and myself and several senior professors in the IE department here. So our collaboration, the mission is to build a very high performance wireless system that can follow intelligent machine speed. So the quick background is today's wireless, everybody use them. You are using Wi-Fi, I guess most of you now. And it has been designed for serving the communication among peoples. But machine normally have much faster perception than humans, so we need to try to boost the speed of the wireless communication. For example, there is a picture showing here you use a lot of moving machines in warehouse. How to control that, this is a big issue. So about the collaboration, I will use code from Einstein to introduce it a bit. Is in theory and practice are the same. So in practice, they are not. So we team up, I mean the two teams from CUHK and from USYD team up to find out the differences, okay? So USYD mainly on the theory side. Of course, they also need to know the practice side, but CUHK more on system building side. So means we develop new theory and we also build system to showcase the theory to boost the impact, okay? So some output of our collaborations, we have two approved projects. One is from Worldwide University Networks, the other is from RTF. I think people from USYD side may not familiar with this RTF. RTF is more like the research between the university and it should be supported by the industry, like ARC linkage. If I tell this, you should know that. So we have two co-supervised PhD students. One already graduated from Sydney and joined me as a postdoc here. And we have another ongoing joint supervised student. We have some joint publications since I joined the CUHK. So how to sustain the collaboration? The first of all, I would say we need to have highly aligned research interests. And one of the professors who said we somehow need to change our interests sometimes, but to maintain that, we need to communicate with each other and try to see whether we still can align the research interests well. And also be direct. I mean, I found that after joining CUHK, I have a lot of things to do this side. Sometimes we have some joint project opportunity, but due to my time schedule, I need to say no for some time. But once you say that, I think normally your collaborator will understand that. Right? So I think an important thing is professors are normally very busy, especially the senior professors. To maintain a good collaboration with them, it's better to work closely with their students. So these are students at the time of the communications. So we have two joint students visit CUHK for more than half a year, and also I need to find some financial support and working space for them, because in Hong Kong working space always an issue. So the impact of COVID, we cannot, of course, very obvious, we cannot visit each other. And we actually submit a joint proposal for beating the National Foundation for Australia-China Relations competitive grants. And actually we passed, we were selected from 530 applications, but because we are worried about whether we can deliver that, because we are not sure whether we can visit each other to fulfill the requirement, so we cancel it. But anyway, we will try it later after the COVID. So this is basically from my side. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you. Lastly, may I invite Professor Wang Li who is from the University of Sydney, but who has continued to work with colleagues at the Chinese University of Hong Kong to work on his deep learning and computer vision work.
Hi, everyone. This is Wang Li. So myself, as introduced, I'm from the University of Sydney. Actually, I graduated as a PhD student from the Chinese University of Hong Kong, and I worked also as the postdoctoral fellow and research assistant professor from the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Since 2017, I moved to the University of Sydney, but I still kept my collaboration. So at the University of Sydney, we established a new lab that is called Sigma. So it is from the Sydney Intelligent Multimedia Laboratory. So our target is to enable machine to understand scene with the multimedia information. To achieve the goal, we have students and researchers working on visual understanding, that is to understand the images and videos and multimedia information from the data. And in order to achieve the goal, of course, machine learning is the core toolbox that we would like to use. Therefore, we have students working on causality and automated machine learning. And with those methods developed, we will apply those methods to new applications like medical imaging, audiovisual understanding, etc. So here are the related students and researchers working on this area at the University of Sydney. So regarding to the research topics, we try to recognize this is a cat from the image by using machine learning methods, and to recognize there is an object within the video, and we can recognize the locations of the body joints, like the head, shoulders, etc., automatically from our artificial intelligence methods. From the input in videos, we can also recognize the 3D shapes, and we can also try to recognize the actions of people like hopping, doing mountain climbing, etc. So here, these three topics are of joint interest from the researchers at Sydney and Hong Kong. Therefore, we have collaborations on these three topics. And at the Chinese University of Hong Kong, the multimedia laboratory has 5 professors from 2 different departments. And together with the team from MM Lab at Hong Kong, and we also consider Sigma Lab at Sydney as MM Lab at Sydney, we won the ImageNet challenge and achieved the best result for developing deep learning methods for object detection. For example, in ImageNet 2015 and 2016, we ranked as the first in this challenge. And this ImageNet challenge was considered as the Olympics in the Computer Vision Society on research. That is why actually these results has been available on several news. And after I arrived at the University of Sydney, I also collaborate with the multimedia laboratory at the Chinese University of Hong Kong and at NTU. And we collaborate together to win the CUHK challenge, which is also another important challenge in object detection in our research community. And working together, we also have two papers considered as the most influential papers published on CVPR and ICCV. There are more than hundreds of papers published each year in CVPR and ICCV. And in our field, CVPR and ICCV are considered as the top tier conference. And in our field, conference papers are considered even more important than journal papers. And there are only 10 papers selected for each year for these publications. So this shows that our publications are not just in quantity, but also in quality. And besides, we also were awarded the IEEE Circuits and Systems Society Outstanding Young Author Awards and in 2020. And this is our paper published in 2017 after I arrived at the University of Sydney. And here are some of the publications listed so we have lots of other publications in the previous years. Here I just list some of them from 2019 to 2021. As you can see, for one of them, we have our paper to be ESI highly cited papers. Actually, it is a hot paper. And so with the collaboration with Professor Xiaogang Wang from CUHK, so Professor Xiaogang Wang and myself are ranked as the top 10 in terms of the field-weighted citation impact when it is ranked by the SCI Val, so from elsewhere publisher. So for the resources, in the past, CUHK did offer great help for my research by offering GPUs because for our field of deep learning, GPU computational resources are really important for success in research. When I came to the University of Sydney, we are lack of computational resources, and CUHK, their laboratory graciously helped us to provide computational resources. And we also had students supervision. Until now, I have co-supervised 5 PhD students with a CUHK laboratory, MM Lab. And in the future, to make this collaboration consistent, more support will be preferred for computational resources and student co-supervision findings. For example, if we can have special findings created for such collaboration, it will help us to have consistent collaboration in the future. And so I started my early career at the University of Sydney. So here I also provide some of the comments on the keys for success for such collaboration. So first, mutual interest will be important. We should have common goals, as we have shown. We have some research topics that are of our common interest, and we have also overlap in that research interest. And we find that self-motivated students are the crucial things for such collaboration, because when we do the co-supervision, we have to have remote communication. If the student is not so self-motivated, we will have issues. And the challenge we are currently facing is the lack of face-to-face meeting. Originally, I will go to Hong Kong to meet those students, and some of the researchers will come here. But now, because of COVID-19, we have to rely more on the online communication ways. And sustained support for the research collaboration will also be precious for this collaboration. So some more tips to early career researchers. When you are lack of students, because you are new, you don't have many resources, you can seek collaboration so that you can find out more interesting research topics. And when you are lack of grants, you can seek collaboration so that you can leverage the profound expertise from your collaborators. When you are lack of experience in research, in collaboration and in other ways, you can still seek collaboration and advice from senior researchers. They did provide me lots of help from researchers, both from the CUHK and from the University of Sydney. That's all for my part. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to the panel discussion and the Q&A session, which will be chaired by Professor Mei-Ha Sham. Just a reminder, if you have any questions, you may put them in the chat box, or you may voice them out directly at the end of the session. Thank you. Professor Sham, please.
Thank you very much. All the 4 successful teams in sharing your collaboration and your experience and some of your recommendations and suggestions. You have covered quite a few common threads. You know, after all, you are the successful examples. So in the audience, if you have any questions, please feel free to write in the chat box, or to just to voice out, you know, when I invite you. After I have invited panel members to share their views. So we have the various members joining us now in the panel. So may I first just ask, you know, any of the teams, collaboration and your successful collaboration, you have shown us how it worked. So would you be able to share with us what was the added value of your team, of your collaborative team? You know, without this partnership, probably there are certain things that cannot be achieved. So what was it that is so unique and that is added, that benefit your research? Any of you who may start?
Maybe I'll try to start and then pass to Tony and Alicia to complement, to supplement. So I guess for our research in biomarker research, having discovery in a single cohort is often interesting, but are often not considered really valid or confirmatory. So working together across different populations, investing in biomarkers across cohort for us is highly complementary. And maybe Tony and Alicia would like to say a bit more.
Yes,
I think that's right, Ronald. Using the same methods has been really important in our work across Hong Kong and Australia. And we've also shared quality assurance samples and QC samples between the 2 countries and laboratories to make sure that we were very well aligned in terms of validation, which, as you say, is very crucial to getting papers accepted in this particular area of research. So it's been quite critical to be working closely together to optimize the scientific merit of the work that both of us have wished to do.
Thank you very much. Indeed, I'm aware that both teams in CUHK and in Sydney have been successful independently, but adding together, you know, the two teams added together, actually gain a lot more because first of all, it's the patient cohort, but the collaboration, actually, I think when you have an international collaboration, you actually push each other to achieve something that otherwise when you're working just as your own team that you may not achieve at that level. I think, Joshua, you also want to say something?
Yes, I think for our combination, it's very unique because unlike the others, they're basically in the same area and same field, whereas now we are combining one more in the clinical and medical field, and we are in the computer science. So in my slides, I think I used that, right? We're basically making the best use of the complementary strength of each side. And of course, I mean, CUHK is very strong in the area of integrative medicine, and so that we can tap on their expertise, and then we can sort of testing some of the ideas that we have. So this is also another area, just like Professor Sam you had mentioned. Each side can be very good in their own area, but for our case is we are trying to basically 1 + 1 is greater than 2 because we are making use of the other strength to help us to build ourselves there.
Yes, your team obviously is giving another example of complementary expertise. I think either one of you obviously can do very well, but working together, you're achieving something that are otherwise not possible. So again, this is a very, very good example. Yes.
So I think I just want to supplement something from our team. So I think the collaboration saves time. So by saving time, I mean, as I mentioned, we build systems. So in a system, there are several different modules. So for example, you see the part, they have accumulated tens of years of experience in some module. I know them because I come from that team. So if we do it here by ourselves, the learning curve is very sharp. We may need another 2 or 3 years to go to the frontier of the area. But after working with them, sometimes they even give 1 sentence can save a year of time. Just go there. They said, just go there and then you'll get it. Yeah, that is from my part.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Wang Li, you actually gave quite a lot of tips during your talk, but
thank you. Yeah, so from my part, as I said before, so here, as you can see, these are the research interests from my group at the University of Sydney. Actually, from CUHK, there are many interested in this area. So we have complementary areas for basic machine learning and new applications. For example, for the new applications, for medical imaging, recently I was funded for multiple sclerosis, which is a disease that mainly happens for Western people. So it is hard to find out such kind of cases if we try to find out the images from Hong Kong or from Asia. So that is the application, unique application that we can obtain. As another example for my recent finding on using robotics for rubbish, for plastic bag, automatic pickup from the rubbish. And that kind of application might not be so easy to get from Hong Kong. However, here we do have these kinds of applications. And then for those new applications, new areas, there will be new problems to be solved so that we can collaborate with each other.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing that particular slide as well. Obviously, you also point out another area of the value of international collaboration, that is the angle, the perspective, the topic of application. So you do expand your existing research to cover new areas that are otherwise you will not think of it, or otherwise not possible to access those problems. So therefore, these international collaboration really do elevate our research achievement. So it's really well worth considering. Now, myself, I'm extremely passionate about early career researchers. If there's anything that we would be able to put in and help, I think we would. In particular, some of you already mentioned you co-supervise students, and during the COVID-19, the face-to-face interaction is not possible. So therefore, what can we do? You know, even though the pandemic may ease out, but I think in a new era, we are going to rely a lot more on the online communication. Any tips that some of you may be able to share in terms of alleviating, when the face-to-face interaction are not necessarily possible?
Alicia.
Yes. Is it Alicia, Professor Alicia? You want to chip in?
Tips.
Well, I think in some areas it has not been possible because of COVID, for example, with the global elective medical students. But I think we need to reassure our young colleagues wishing to come to each other's countries and other partnering institutions that the program will resume as soon as international travel is able to resume. I'd also think it's that we should continue to use regular Zoom meetings and dialogue to plan the next stage of work, and we should actively try to include some of our early and mid-career people in that. I think it would be quite helpful if our institutions could provide what is often relatively small amounts of seed money towards projects and travel, as they have in the past. As one of the experiences that Ronald and our team have had is that while we have had success, we've also had a lot of knockbacks for collaborative project, because I think people see, oh, they're already working together, we don't want to contribute. And that particularly disadvantages our early and mid-career people. So it'd be fantastic if our institutions, even during the travel restricted time, could provide some seed grants that our early and career researchers could use to develop ideas, and when travel opens up, could apply for.
Yeah, I agree. So it's continuous support for existing teams and not just for new teams in providing travel support for the junior researchers. I think that travel will be bit by bit will be relaxed soon. But in any case, I think communication is very, very important. I don't know whether anyone want to add more about on this topic. I have others. You could also add, when you speak next. Now, all of you actually share positive examples. You probably go on passing about difficulties that you had faced. So other than the smooth sail stories, so I'm sure that over your years of collaboration, you also had come across difficulties. If you could share with the audience, what was the obstacle, how you overcome it? Probably others would also learn, from your experience. Anyone who would share? I thought, Wang Li, you were just about to say something.
Yeah,
yes.
I can share. So this is for what doesn't.
Wow, you're very well prepared.
Yeah. So we need self-motivated students. So I supervise 5 students, but one of them is not willing to. So we as Isha has said, so we need frequent dialogue between researchers and students. On the other hand, so if the student is not willing to attend such kind of frequent meeting, then it causes troubles for us. And there's one of the students who is not willing to. So for example, when we arrived at the time when we should meet, but he just didn't reply, and he didn't show himself on our meeting, then that will cause special issues. So in that case, we need self-motivated students who are willing to communicate, and otherwise we will have troubles. And in that case, to solve this issue, I try to privately tell the student to attend the meeting for several times. But after several times of trial, the student still didn't reply. I communicated with the supervisor regarding that, and we worked together and figured out a plan to make this effective. And so we re-established the frequent meeting, and that helps a lot. And the other thing is that we always consider that online meeting is not so effective when compared with the face-to-face ones. We have to admit that. But at least I think there could be 2 ways to help us to solve that, to alleviate that problem. One thing is that could be we switch on our cameras when we have face-to-face meeting. At least we can see each other's face when we have the meeting. And the other thing is to use available tools like the annotate tool on the Zoom, so that we can draw something, and so that we can share the screen, so that we can see each other what we are talking about. That is also very important. So trying to get used to new tools could be also important.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Ronald, you want to say something?
Yeah, I would just perhaps mention one point that's worth thinking. I guess we all have multiple collaborations, and of course in that may create conflict. So I think it's important in collaborations to be honest, where you foresee or anticipate potential conflict and to actually bring that up into discussion. And I think that often helps sort of define what areas you will continue to work on and what are things that you may be collaborating outside of the collaboration. I think that is important and help sort of prevent issues arising later.
Yeah, thank you very much for this very valuable feedback as well. I agree with you, because there are obviously challenges over the years of collaboration. And one way of building up a collaborative relationship is really share your difficulty and challenges and be honest with each other. And therefore, at the end of the day, actually go further. Now, I think in terms of the panel discussion and the common questions, we have touched upon a few. I just want to give the audience a bit of a chance to see if anyone, we do have quite a number of participants. Any of you who would like to make any comments? Any of you in the audience? I can see various people have written their comments in the chat box as well and sharing with us your experience. But I just wonder whether any of you who want to ask anything could speak out. I'm reading. I think you could also see the comments in the chat box. They're not particularly questions, but more on the comments. Okay, so it looks like that among the audience, these are, I mean, they're not specific questions that they would like to raise. Any other comments from my panelists that you would like to make a last comment? No. So should I pass the time to Amanda?
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. There's some interesting comments in the box, and there are
yes, there are a lot. Yeah.
Funding and such, which is kind of important, obviously, to support collaborative research. So thank you, Professor Sham, and also a really big thank you to our presenters today. Inspiring that a small amount of money can develop into projects that have resulted in some really impactful research, but also the co-supervision of students. That's just such a wonderful outcome, and that's the kind of I suppose it describes a really perfect outcome that these projects would include the co-supervision of students, leverage funding, joint publications, and so on. But it's also encouraging to see teams of researchers working together, including our ECRs. So they obviously benefit from the mentorship of the professors, which I think is really important. And we do encourage those teams working together as opposed to wanting to fund CI to CI. But thank you again for all your really helpful advice and insights. I'm hoping that people, that the audience enjoyed hearing the insights from our professors. So over the next 12 months, both universities are going to be developing a suite of STG Focused Workshops. And the purpose of these workshops is really to provide a platform for our early and mid-career researchers to collaborate on projects addressing the STGs. The first workshop is going to be held in mid-August. We will send out notification around that. It's going to focus on SDG 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities, SDG 13, Climate Action, and SDG 14, Life Below Water. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that obviously both institutions have committed funding in the past. Unfortunately, last year we just suspended the funding because obviously the seed funding we provide is for mobility and workshops. We've also had to suspend it this year, but we're hoping that we will be able to announce around later on in this year for next year, because we understand it's important for that face-to-face interaction. We've all benefited and we've all pivoted quite successfully to online platforms. But I think that the conversations that I've had with researchers is that, yes, it's great, and we know it's here to stay, but those face-to-face interactions are the really important interactions where you get to know people and you get to know your researchers and you get to enjoy those other networking activities that we know fall short on Zoom. We know that it's very difficult to have virtual drinks on Zoom. We've tried it ourselves and it hasn't been particularly successful. So without further ado, I would actually like to ask all the presenters if you wouldn't mind staying online for a couple of minutes so we can take a family photo. But again, I'd like to thank all the presenters today and to Professor Sham for chairing, and to all our colleagues at our event. Thank you very much. Stay safe. We'll see you next time. Thank you.